What's going on, my fellow freelancers? Your dude Sly here, back at it with another Anthem video for you. And this time, guys, we're going to be diving into something deep. A system that I thought I had nailed down months ago, but as my time in San Francisco taught me, the combo systems go a little bit deeper than I originally thought. So in this video, guys, we're going to be taking a look at everything related to combat. Elemental attacks, combos, primers, detonators, the different symbols, area of effect, dot damage, damage over time. We'll talk about how different elemental attacks work on armor and shields, along with the best way to take care of each. Now, if you've watched my previous gameplay on Grandmaster difficulty, then you know shields are absolutely going to be no joke. They are the bane of my existence, and if you do not handle them effectively, the word bullet sponge starts to creep in after a while. So let's start with the basics, guys. Let's learn the symbols. Now, there's been some confusion in recent times as to what these different symbols mean, and there's a reason for that. Different builds. There have been countless builds and gameplay from each floating around on YouTube, and even though it's the same game, they all have different things going on within them. Think of builds kind of like experiments. You know, one build has this new thing while the other one does not. So a while ago, and even in the current demo, the symbols are different than they will be in the final game. It went from having old symbols like this one to now using symbols like this, and BioWare finally decided to stick with these. We have the circle and then the ninja star looking thing. Circle stands for primer, star or explosion is going to be the detonator. And now that we're talking about primers and detonators, let's go ahead and dive into combos since everyone's most familiar with these. The combos within Anthem are similar to the system that they had within Mass Effect Andromeda. Most of your elemental attacks are going to be primers, and they are designated a primer by the circle next to its name. And your detonator abilities are any ability or piece of gear with what I call the impact symbol or ninja star next to their name. Now, there has been some confusion about the symbols because they have changed throughout the months of feedback from the public. Now, as I mentioned before, solo players will need to equip themselves with at least one primer and one detonator because being able to self-combo is the key to solo play. So moving over to primer, we have fire, ice, electricity, and acid. Now, once you see an enemy retain a status effect with this kind of symbol above their head, you can use your detonator, and then both of these combined will result into a combo which delivers tons of damage. Now, elemental abilities in Anthem are also quite unique. Have you ever wondered why sometimes you can freeze an enemy with just a few ice shards, and then other times they just simply walk away from it? Well, Anthem's abilities come equipped with a unique stat, as you see right here. Now, think of this stat as the effectiveness of that particular, piece of gear, while damage is a completely separate stat. You can do massive damage to an enemy, but not always trigger a status effect, such as freezing, shocking, or putting acid on the enemy. This stat here, located at the bottom of any primer, is called your status stat, and it basically tells you how effective your ability is at delivering and holding a status effect on an enemy. The higher this bar, the better your chances at triggering a status effect. But not only that, the longer your status effect will last once it's procced. So, for example, look at these two abilities here, guys. Notice that they are the same in status, but different in damage. So that means they will deliver a status effect with the same amount of use on an enemy. However, one ability will do more damage in doing so. Next, let's talk about combos within each javelin. Now, believe it or not, guys, every javelin combos differently. For example, the Ranger triggers a combo that does huge damage to one single target, the target that the combo has been triggered on, so it's best for larger endgame bosses. The Colossus combo ability is one of the strongest. It deals an area of effect explosion that damages all enemies around the combo. The Storm's combo reaches out across enemies that are close to it, and while it doesn't share the combo damage, it passes on the elemental effects of that combo, which then in turn allows for more combos. And the Interceptor is granted an aura after a combo, and whatever elemental effect was used in that combo is a type of aura that's passed on. This will then pass that elemental effect to any enemies close to the Interceptor. Okay, next let's talk about how to take care of shields, armor, etc. Now, like I mentioned, endgame difficulties are brutal, and you really need to come well equipped. Problem is that one javelin can't equip everything that you need to be successful in these higher difficulties, so team play is equally important. First, let's talk about the different elements and what they do. Now, certain elements work better on certain type of enemies, but when you narrow it down, it's basically shields and armor. Shields need elemental abilities to be taken down effectively. However, not all of them are equal. Same goes with armor. So let's take a look, starting with fire. Now, fire abilities will cause dot damage, damage over time, slowly whittling away enemies' health for a very small amount while they are on fire. Fire damage is a great choice for physical shielding like armor. Scar Enforcers are well known for their gigantic shields and lots of armor, denoted by the yellow health bar. Fire weakens armor, now not by a lot, but it does grant a little extra damage. Sticking with armor, next up let's talk about acid. Now acid, guys, is your best friend in strongholds, legendary contracts, or the end game in general. Not only is it a comboable element, but acid weakens armor tremendously. It also does brief dot damage, aka damage over time. However, fire is the best at dot damage. Now, in order to gain the weakening effects of acid, you have to invoke a status effect. This again harks back to the status stat on the abilities that you're going to be using, which we talked about earlier. Now, the better your acid status stat is, that's funny. Anyway, the better that stat is, the better the chances of landing an acid status effect, which is ultimately what weakens the enemy, allowing your entire team to do more damage. Now remember, if you don't get an elemental ability to stick as a status effect, the only thing you're going to be doing is damage with that element. All the great secondary effects only start once you see that little symbol above the head of your enemies. Otherwise, it's simply just dealing impact damage. Another good thing about acid is that while it's fantastic against armored opponents, it works on virtually everything. All enemies will take more damage if they have an acid status effect. However, acid does not work all that well on shielded enemies, the ones with the blue bar above their health. And speaking of shields, let's go to the next two elements, guys, ice and electricity. Starting with ice here, ice is great against fast-moving or extremely hard-hitting targets, such as turrets or major enemies. Ice slows enemies and ultimately freezes them if you can proc an ice status effect. Ice is quite effective against shields, but not so good against armored enemies. And finally, the last one, we have electricity or shock effects. Electric effects all cause some kind of AoE damage or area of effect. It does this by chaining out arc electricity from enemy to enemy. Similar to ice abilities, electricity deals more damage to shielded enemies. However, it's not the best choice for an armored opponent. So anytime you see an enemy that has a blue bar above their health, you want to be using ice or electricity. If you see the orange bar health guy, which means it's all full of armor, you want to be using fire or you want to be using acid. Now, one thing to remember is that when a status effect is procced and a combo is detonated, whoever lands that detonation, be it a Ranger, Storm, Colossus, or Interceptor, they will be the one deciding the combo effect. Like we talked about earlier, each javelin combos differently, and whoever lands the detonator decides the combo type. Also, just because the combo has been detonated, it doesn't mean that the after effects have worn off, such as fire, for example. Even after a combo, enemies can still catch fire, dealing damage over time. Well, of course, after the combo has been detonated, and acid works the same way. After a detonation, if your enemy is still green, you will still keep dealing extra damage until the effect wears off. The status effect symbol will tell you if the ability was successful in proccing, but just because that disappears doesn't mean the secondary effects have completely worn off. And finally, guys, let's talk about mixing this all together. So first things first, get rid of shields. You cannot land a status effect on a shielded enemy. You have to completely remove its shield before you can get one to stick. Now, it's best to use long-lasting effects like fire that deal damage over time, because if you stop shooting even for a few seconds, shields will regenerate, and on harder difficulties, that is gut-wrenching when it happens. So applying a status effect and abilities that come with dot damage helps in keeping the shields off, allowing you to take cover, switch weapons, reload, etc. Again, ice and electricity effects are the best abilities to use to take out shields. Bullet and impact abilities are the least effective on shielded enemies. Now, when I was playing a legendary contract last week, there was a few times where my team did some massive damage, and it surprised us. Upon looking back at it, I made some notes on the airplane, and it all points to stacking your effects. There were a few times where we used a combination of fire and acid on an armored turret, which we were then able to take out extremely fast. Now, unfortunately, I had about 3 hours of footage that corrupted when I tried transferring all my video files off my portable hard drive onto my computer, including a brand new contract and another stronghold, which of course is where we pull these combos off. But in any case, when the full game comes out and we start getting into epic and masterwork abilities, try your luck at stacking various status effects such as fire and acid for heavily armored opponents, or trying to freeze them and do all three, fire, acid, and ice. You will be surprised at just how much damage you can deal when you go at these guys the right way. Now, the only thing I'm still trying to figure out about Anthem are status effects on end mission or stronghold bosses. I think it's because our elemental status, the stat that we talked about earlier, just isn't large enough to be able to get these effects to stick on such a large boss. Once we start getting more powerful gear like legendary gear with much better fire, ice, electric, or acid status, I believe the status effect on bosses will be more prevalent and stick for a lot longer time. But right now, they seem to barely stay on for more than a split second. Hopefully we'll find out more details on that soon. But that is about it, Lancers. Now, I made a similar video not too long ago, like a month or so, but with the changing of symbols and some new information popping up about the whole shields and armor thing, I wanted to put this out as sort of like an ultimate guide for elemental abilities, combos, shields, and armor. I hope this helps you sort out the abilities within Anthem, and hopefully it will make your stronghold experiences even better. So yeah, I'm out, guys. As always, thank you for watching and for supporting Sly Nation. If you're new to my channel, then welcome, my friend. Subscribe for lots more Anthem and Division 2 videos. Spank the thumbs up, but only if you enjoyed yourself, and comment down below on what your favorite ability seems to be thus far. I'm really liking Tempest Strike for Interceptor, Lightning Strike for the Storm, not quite sure what it's called on the Ranger, but it's something like Charge Missile or something where you have to hold down the button to charge it, and then for Chungus, the Colossus, its ultimate still gives me goosebumps every time I use it. BioWare nailed that feeling down of power on the Colossus. Even though it's not my favorite Javelin, it's fun to use simply for that. But that's it, guys. Take care and keep those eyes open for more videos coming out here soon. But until then, this is your dude Sly, and I will catch you guys next time.